All right. So this is a review or reaction towards the movie Dances with Wolves. Now, I can remember this movie being played on TV as I was when I was younger. For whatever reason, I never watched it. Uh, but time goes on, and then I heard it mentioned probably again, and still never watched it. For some reason, I was confusing this with like it's another movie. It's called like Jesus. I should have researched it or looked it up before I did start recording. What was the name of that movie? Like it was something about a code talker or something, but two completely different movies and two completely different subjects. But anyway, I figured they were one and the same, but boy was I wrong. Another funny thing about this, well, funny or odd thing, this movie actually came out the year I was born, so 1990. Just thought that was interesting. So this movie takes a look at that small. It's like a small little window in between the West actually being considered like a frontier or virgin land, and uh, and that time period where people considered the West was being one, quotation marks. I'm gonna try my best not to use those air quotes too much while I'm explaining this movie, because if you've watched any other of my videos, you know I kind of like history, so I'm coming at this from a complete different perspective other than entertainment. Although it is meant to be entertainment. Now we got that out the way. Let me just try and give a simple overview of the movie. Um, Takes a look at a lieutenant. It starts right after the Civil War. Yay, we're free now. Or my ancestors are free. I couldn't resist that one. Anyway, um, so it starts his starts off following his journey right after the Civil War. Now he's fighting for the Union. He does something that's considered heroic. So that winds up. Well, he's half delusional because he's lost some blood at this point. He's had a very serious injury to his like ankle or something like that. And of course, the way medicine was back then, and especially in concerns when you're considering battlefield medicine, hey, if there's a hole in there, we're just gonna have to saw it off and then patch up that stump. That's all. That's basically all they could do. I mean, if you look up, if you Google Civil War medical kits, there's like 13 different saws or something like that. I mean, there's that's pretty much their answer to everything. I mean, they just didn't. The knowledge just wasn't there. So okay, let's continue on. So after he commits that or does that heroic act, he basically like, hey, we can send you wherever you want to send you, and then he's like, oh, I want to go to the frontier. Of course, there's little to no information about what's actually going on out there. So when he goes out there, he's like, I just want to see the land. He gets to his post. There's nobody there. Um, I'm thinking how I need to phrase this. It's not. I shouldn't be walking too lightly, but let me just try and spit it out here. So he winds up coming in contact with some of the local Native Americans. It's a little hostility in the air at first. Then he decides to introduce himself, and they take the time, or at least the writers and the director, which is actually the Kevin Costner guy. He's actually the director of it, which I thought was even more interesting. They take the time to it's the little things, and I love the little things. But let me just try and get this out. So there's a moment when he's gonna go basically make himself introduce himself to these to he's calling them the neighbors, well, kind of our neighbors. He's gonna introduce himself to them, and they take the time to show him cleaning his boots and polishing his brass and putting his sword on and making sure his uniform is neat and tidy as possible. And he's also carrying uh, the current American flag with it like 13 states or something like that, right? He gets there, he finds a woman, sobbing or whatever the case is, but she's self harming. I guess would be considered, well, I guess I use that term because it's people can understand what that means. Like, oh, she's cutting herself, but she's doing that because she just lost her husband. Of course, I'm not a historian by any means, but I feel I've heard something along those lines uh, being actuality. Now I don't know. Like I said, so he helps her best he can. He takes her back to the tribe. Of course, there's that language barrier. Neither one of them have any idea what you're saying, but they can see that she's hurt, so they pull her away from him and then take her back to the tribe. And he's telling them, I'm not scared of you. Get your butt out of here. Blah 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 blah. What kind of happened a little bit before that, but anyway, he goes back. He starts writing his journal about all these events. Then I think slowly but surely, there's a few meetings between these individuals. There's a young hothead, and there's a guy who's a little bit more wiser, older and wiser. And the chief is so cool. Um, so that continues on like that for a little while. Before you know it, he's pretty much befriended. Well, he's brought in as family. I mean, it just speaks to no matter your cultural background, social, economic, or even if the language barrier exists, if a person can tell you're of like sound mind and of good heart, then I feel like a friendship can be formed. That's what happens in this case. So he pretty much completely envelops himself inside their life and pretty much abandons his post. But the whole time I'm watching this, I'm getting so into the story, and I'm like, man, this is good. Like, this is good. But in the back of my mind, because of my love of history, I know how it all played out to a certain point, and I'm like, oh man, this is a great movie so far. When are they gonna get to the genocidal acts uh, um, and how are they going to showcase the brutality that that's that human beings are capable of? How are they going to showcase that? I'm interested to see that. The whole time as I'm getting more and more to the story and getting attached to these characters, I'm like, what's their take on this? How are they going to display these horrible events that are bound to happen? And they kind of ease into it. They don't they don't it's I feel like I might have to look at it again, but I feel like it wasn't overly, I don't feel like it was too biased, if that makes any sense. I don't feel like it was, these are the bad guys, these are the good guys. I feel like they did a decent job of giving you enough information from all sides and both sides and all parties involved to understand the climate and what was going on. I feel like they did a decent job of doing that. I don't feel like it was portraying any side as animals or barbaric. To an extent, I mean, not overly. That's what I mean, like completely biased. But I feel like it's impossible for it not to be, not for it's impossible for the story not to have a little bit of bias towards, in this case, the Americans. Uh, but like I say, they didn't steer away from showing or showcasing the brutality that the Native Americans were capable of. And it's such a, it's not even a touchy subject. It's a hard subject to wrap your head around. I can say that much. But I think they did a good job of that. I think not being on either side, of course, not having ties to either side of either camp here. I'm just saying this as a person speaking from the outside looking in, and also from an entertainment standpoint. I feel like they did a good job. I'm just gonna leave it at that. I feel like he did a good job. So after after a little while, as he's getting uh, so sold into this particular group, he eventually finds a wife, and this wife is the woman that he saves in the beginning when she happens to be a captive of theirs. I guess I shouldn't say captive. Well, initially she was a captive, but they got her when she was so young. She she feels like she doesn't know anything else, so that's basically her life and her family. But she knows she's not 100% like them, but she's completely tuned into what's going on with them. If that makes any sense. So, but eventually the inevitable does happen. What the inevitable is, it shows its ugly face, and they do another, and again they do a great job of showcasing that. They I want to mention this one scene before I continue. So there's a scene when the Kevin Costner character, let's call him Lieutenant. When the lieutenant sits down with the chief, and they're having a talk about all the people who have come and tried to run them out of their land or kill them, and he's sitting there and he's unwrapping this cloth, and you never guess what's underneath it. It's a conquistador helmet, or yeah, conquistador helmet from the Spanish, and I'm like, I cannot believe it. I cannot believe they put such a crazy detail like that inside this movie. That just took it to the next level for me, because I say I like the small things. So continuing on with the story, uh, there's a point when the Costner character is like, yeah man, I got to go back. I got to get this journal because it can lead him straight to you. And by the time he's been gone from his fort for so long, his post for so long, by the time he gets back there, it's repopulated with soldiers. And of course, I knew it was coming because I've listened to audiobooks and watched so many programs surrounding this topic, and boom, like a ton of bricks that hit you. They shoot his horse, they drag him off the horse. I think he got hit in the head with the butt of a rifle at least 4 times. He got shackled, and they're still beating him. I mean, they portrayed these Americans as pretty brutish, but I want to touch on the fact that they showed the spread. They gave it an even, not even. They gave it a fair shake because they didn't portray every soldier as that. They portrayed only a few soldiers like that, and they portrayed some other soldiers more as, like, I guess you'd be considered like company man or something like that, or who have more in tune with their conscience, is the best way I could describe it. So that's why I say it's hard to say, for me at least, that of course there's some bias involved in a subject like this, but they did a good job of showing all perspectives, I feel. Now continuing on, he winds up getting saved by his tribe, and they wind up taking out everybody involved, at least in that smaller party of soldiers. But like I said, some of them deserved it, some of them didn't deserve it. But hey, it is what it is. So he winds up getting back, and he's trying to warn the chief, "Hey man, this is only gonna get worse." And touching back to the conversation they had earlier, he's like, "Man, I've seen so many different groups of people come here and try and push us out, and kill him and things of that nature. We're always going to be here," which was his standpoint. So I mean, the movie pretty much ends on that note. There's some sorrow involved in it. There's some happy moments involved in it, and of course, it's not a 100% perfect movie, because the young lady who plays his wife and love interest, her acting is, it's bad at times, and that's me being polite. It's bad at times, but I still think her character is completely and 100% necessary in this story. But her acting is not the best. I will admit that. What else? So some other things that I saw that kind of caught my eye in this film. Apparently, all the Union soldiers had like the latest technology as far as rifles were concerned around the time. They're like, I looked it up, but for the life of me, I couldn't remember the name. But they're, if you watch those, if you know anything about the Civil War, I mean, this is really close to the Civil War. So the rifles that they were primarily using were these old things where they had to basically they had to stuff everything in through the barrel and then smush it down with a long rod, and then they get one shot, and that's it. And then they got to do the whole process over again. And there's to my knowledge, it that takes about a minute. So you're firing every minute if you're really fast. But for some reason, all these soldiers had the latest and greatest rifles, which were these things were kind of like I guess it's like breech load. So you like the barrel, kind of like a shotgun, but for a rifle. Um, they all had that, which I might want to call bullshit on that because it's just I don't think there was enough of those produced during that particular time period. I could be wrong. Like I said, I'm not a historian. Uh, what else happens in there? I think I spoke on the young lady cutting herself because but she's torn up on the fact that she's lost her first husband. What else happened in there? What? Yeah, her whole character in general, I think they stay pretty true to that because I've heard stories about things like that, not just from movies but from books and documentaries. What else? What else? The overall idea. It's a fantastic idea for a movie because it's not showcasing the worst and it's not showcasing the best. I don't think it's that little itty bitty tiny window right in between uh, complete freedom as far as Native Americans are concerned and a new order or dominance as far as the U.S. is concerned. It's like that little brief window right there, which I think is a great sliver of American history to take a look at and to create a movie out of. And also, I think it's from a book too. Well, so I might have to look that book up and see if there's an audio version and listen to it while I'm driving. Um, what else I want to touch on about this movie? Uh, Jesus. I don't know if there's anything else to touch on. I think it's a great movie. Like I said, I mean, there's. I want to call bullshit on the rifles. The young lady's acting, who's this Kevin Costner's his character's the lieutenant's love interest. Her acting's not the best. Um, I think every other character is pretty believable. Um, I think they pretty much stayed true to all the information that's available about the subject. I mean, they didn't sugarcoat it and they didn't try and I don't think it was overly biased to either side. I know I've said that a couple times, but I'm just trying to make sure I get all my thoughts out about it. But one thing I think they left out, they didn't show any black soldiers, which I think is, again, I might want to alcohol bullshit on that too, because I think there were some black soldiers involved, but I don't know if they were necessarily involved in that little time period. Because, like I said, I'm not a historian. What else? I think that's it. Overall, it's a good movie, but I think I've mentioned the thing. I've called out a few things, and I think I might want to call bullshit on. And of course, the young lady's acting. But other than that, still a great watch. Now, if you like this new setting I'm working on and kind of like in the dark with limited light, have a few other videos up. Stepping up my movies. I'm doing Futurama, that episode by episode. I've got The Wire. I've got all of Breaking Bad up. I'm suffering through The Mandalorian too. So go check those out and don't forget to subscribe.